Almost a week ago now, I attended the Restorative Action Alliance's virtual meeting at their invitation, and I learned a great deal. I had to cut out and go to another meeting, unfortunately, but um, it was very interesting. This is an organization that deals with the stigmata of the sex offender registry, um, of the attempt to continue to punish people who, by placing them on a registry, and to basically attempt to reform the criminal justice system in a variety of ways. And the stings are a companion to that, which is something I pointed out to them. I talked about the site a little bit. Unfortunately, I was not able to stay, like I said, because I had to go to another meeting. And I want to sincerely thank them for inviting me. Um, I wanted to point out a couple things I learned while on the site. Um, because I've had a spirited discussion back and forth in part about the registry and how it's not really punishment, in part because the Supreme Court said so. But many of us who suffer through it, the Supreme Court is not all knowing, they're not all seeing, and they get it wrong. They get it wrong many, many times over the years. Brown v. Board of Education. We can go on from there. The Korematsu decision during World War II, and this one, Smith v. Doe, among several others, obviously. Remember at one point they upheld slavery. So the Supreme Court, just because a court said so, does not make it right, does not make it proper. It makes it legal, but don't confuse legal with ethical, moral, or otherwise. So one of the things that was pointed out, I'm going to put into the description. This is a blog from a registrant who has kept up on the state by state requirements, and there are some new requirements. Fortunately, they're a little less I'm sorry, onerous than some others that are out there. Um, so that's good news. And we in Virginia have been able to stop a number of the worst requirements. Come on. Sorry, my cat wants to come in. Some of the worst requirements and expansion of the registry, which, despite what some people say, it really, in practical terms, doesn't do what the registry is advertised to do, which is to supposedly keep tabs on terrible people like me. Of course, what it really does is allow a forum for continuing to harass and punish and come after people because, I've had now 3 jobs. I'm not the only one. And somebody calls up and says, I just want you to know about this person. And then you get fired. So I'm not quite sure what they expect people to do who are on the registry. And remember, it's very important to remember that the registry has all kinds of people on it, all kinds of people. Okay. And some of these people are pint sized, they're children. Some of these people should not be on the registry at all. And according to the people who operate the registry, the vast majority of the people are of no danger to the public. And this is by their own experience in dealing with people like me. But yet we still have people on my site and others who say, oh, the registry is very important. And they read you the textbook advertisement about what the registry is supposed to be, or they tell you that the courts have upheld it, and therefore it's just wonderful. And of course, we would have to go back and look at what actually the registry does, and what happened in the before time when you didn't have a registry. Um, Very often we think that we have a new idea and therefore it's better than the old idea, and then we go and look at it many years later and we find out that the old idea was just fine. It does continue to punish and stigmatize people, and eventually it will be exposed for just that purpose. And it really hasn't protected one kid that anybody can see, but yet we still hear that there's documented proof. And admittedly, the one side looks at studies that seem to support their side, and our side looks at studies that seem to support ours. But the difference is we live it, and the other side only looks from the outside approvingly. A couple of things that the Restorative Action Alliance brought up in that punitive theme is something that I forget to mention in a couple of my posts on here, which is that the registry doesn't allow you access to military bases. Now, I could get some work on military bases, and but for the fact that I'm on the dreaded list, and when I went to the military base to sign up at the urging of one of my bosses a couple of years ago, I was denied access in a very nasty way. The window was slammed down in front of me, and the woman walked away. So, I mean, this is the sort of abuse that you take routinely out there when people just see that your name is on the registry. They don't know why you're there, they just assume the worst. That's the way it really works. And for those of you who are saying, well, that's just fine with me, well, you know, I could be teaching your kids and doing a great job with that as I did for 30 years. And calling me names and calling other people names, claiming that we molested somebody is simply untrue. It's just untrue. And it just speaks to the abuse and the stigma that people suffer because they are on registries. A couple other points that you ought to know: 90%, 80%, excuse me, reading my own notes here, 80% of those nursing homes out there will not take somebody who's a registrant. In Virginia, they passed a law 2 years ago, I think it was, that if you're a registrant, you cannot use an emergency shelter unless you inform the manager. And the manager, it seems, has a right to refuse you entry. So if there was a great national emergency or a flood or something like that, and the shelters were open, you would conceivably not be allowed to do it. I've already spoken about the laws they had in and still have in Florida to some extent, whereby they made it so onerous that a bunch of people who are registrants had to huddle under just a couple of bridges because they couldn't be within so many feet of any place where children went, essentially, playgrounds, rec centers, schools, etc. There are a lot of these things in Florida. Well, then, of course, the public was complaining and kvetching about, why are all these people under bridges? This is a public safety hazard, blah, 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 and we need to get these people out of there and stuff. Of course, keenly unaware that they were there because they had no place else to be. So when you say the registry doesn't punish, it does, okay, in very real ways. So 80% of nursing homes won't take people. Um, Many Section 8 and reduced or assisted reduced income or assisted living facilities will not take people on the registry. Of course, you also have military bases where veterans who fought for our safety and our security, are barred from getting medical treatment on these facilities, I learned. However, some facilities have started, when vets scream bloody murder, escorting people to the medical facilities on base, etc. Fine, wonderful. Okay. I guess they think you're going to molest a sailor or something like that. I don't know. So it's pretty stark what is going on out there, and if people only knew, but the vast majority of the public doesn't care. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't care at first. I didn't care. I believed what many people in the public believe today, that people are on the registry for a reason. The reason is they're some kind of violent sexual predator. And now I know quite differently. Having met a lot of people, reviewed their documents, seen their stories, some of whom I was in prison with, or jail with, excuse me, I was not in prison, but incarcerated with. It's pretty amazing how it's stacked against you. And just because John Roberts, in his famous um, written opinion for the Smith v. Doe case some 20 years ago, wrote, the registry is nothing more onerous than a Price Club membership sign up, just shows how tone deaf and unaware they are of this very onerous system. So I'm going to put in the description the blog post of this gentleman. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay for the rest of the meeting, and really appreciate you listening to this. Please subscribe if you find it of value. This is I.C.A.C Unpacked for the 17th of September 2024. I'm Norman Michael Asian.